Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started on looking at the lessons for 3.1 and 3.2, I want to show you something slightly different that I did for checking your answers. So go to Math 7. And if you notice, I got the homework answers right here. All you have to do is click on that, and a PDF will come up with all of those answers for 12 through 20 and 25 and 26. Because if you remember previously, we were just doing some odds, so still want to give you the answers just like if we were in class and so on. Remember, if you have any questions on any of the problems on how we get those answers, just go ahead and send me a quick email. I could either just type in my response, or I can make a quick video that I can share with you and other students if they might have the exact same mistake. All right, let's go ahead and look again at the textbook online. And we're going to go ahead and look at Chapter 3. So thinking about this and talking with my 8th graders as well is that solving equations is probably the most important skill that we can teach you before you move on to high school. And part of that starts off with in elementary school thinking. You've got 5 apples and 3 apples. You have how many apples and so on. And then as you switch into junior high and high school, you're obviously using abstract thinking, which is just variables. So if you remember, we did this earlier in the year. We're going to go ahead and look at the idea of combining like terms. So scrolling through again. So the first part is obviously being able to identify your like terms. And what we discussed previously is it has to have the same variable, the same exponent, or none of that, where it's just basic numbers. So in other words, as it's trying to show you right here on part A, a 9x and a negative 1x, those would be considered like terms, listed right there. Where a negative 2 and positive 7, those are listed to be like terms. Kind of like, again, when you went grocery shopping, apples and oranges were in separate bags, a separate understanding. But here on part B, notice that you've got some of it, all the same letters, all the same variable, but you got different exponents. And the key idea there, again, is you have to have different types of apples in different bags because they are charged at a different price. So, for example, one of my favorite is the Honey Crisp. Those are like candy, but those are like one of the most expensive apples. And I've got 4 kids, so we get the cheaper version. But they love those Fuji apples. But 2 different prices, so they got to be able to ring them up, charge you separately, and so on. So in other words, those would be considered unlike terms. So again, a z squared and negative 3z squared, those of course are like terms. 5z and z like terms. Again, 2 different types of apples. That's probably the easiest way to think about it. So going to go ahead and talk about a few problems here, and then we'll do some on your own, helping you out to be able to rock this lesson and then your next assessment. But again, remember, the learning is not just for points. The learning is trying to make sure that you are improving yourself, teaching you how to think, and getting you ready for the end of, I don't want to say your school career, right? Because high school is an ultimate goal, but if you can move on to college with college math, you'll be that much better prepared for success with that way that you are learning to think. So right here again, simplify, it simply means identify your like terms. If you remember, you cannot add or subtract fractions unless they have the same denominator. So they kind of went ahead and took a shortcut. They didn't show how they combined that because, again, technically we want them to have the same denominator. So we'll show that a little bit more in depth as we're going to do on your own problems. Okay, there we go. All right, so lesson 3.1 at the very beginning, what I asked my students to do again when we were discussing this part was combining like terms, identifying them first by either doing your boxes, circles, triangles, hearts, and so on. So for example, on number 1, there's a little 1 here. Zoom in for our vision challenged friends. Sorry, it's a little blurry. We've got a 1y and a negative 3 over 2y. Those would be considered like terms because they both have a y. And then we've got a 10. So actually on number 1, I'm going to go ahead and practice combining those just like I'm going to do here on 4, 5, and 6. So a 1y, remember, is really a 2 over 2y. And then you've got a negative 3 over 2y. And then your plus 10. So we should be able to agree that the plus 10 is going to stay the same. Those are unlike terms with the y's. And then 2 subtract a 3 using our skills again with, okay, same difference, or really you could do adding the opposite if you like. So add, and then it's negative 3 over 2. Still, I'm going to take the difference, which is subtraction. So a 3 subtract a 2 is a 1, but I'm going to take the negative sign from the 3 because it has the negative 3 has the greater absolute value. So really have negative 1/2 y plus 10. And actually, I don't like the location of the y there. The y should actually be a little bit closer to the middle. There we go. All right, looking at number 2, looking for like terms first and then combine them. So I've got a 1 here. So r squared is going to go first. So I've got a 2r squared and a negative 1r squared. So 2 subtract a 1 is just a 1r squared, or r squared. 7r, nothing like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just write plus 7r. And then subtract 9. Oops, sorry, I got to do a different shape. Let's do a cloud. Not the greatest. Don't laugh at me. You hurt my feelings. All right, number 3. Combining like terms. Let's do alphabetical order. So P, Q, R. Hopefully you didn't have to go all the way from A, B, C, D. All right, so I've got a 1 here. So I've got a positive 4p and a positive 1p. Those are like terms. 4 plus 1 is a 5p. P, Q, R, remember? So I've got my Q, and that gets to stay the same, plus 2Q. And let's do triangles this time. That's a positive 7 and a negative 5. 7 subtract 5 is a 2, positive 2. So again, I'm practicing combining like terms as well as identifying that. Because again, combining like terms is going to be super duper important as we progress. So that's why I wanted to focus that on those problems as well. All right, so looking at 4, 5, and 6, going to practice the same strategy. Number 4, we're going to do the letters first, the variables first, then we'll do the numbers at the end, the integers. All right, so I've got a positive 1 here again. So I've got a negative 3z and a positive 1z. So I can go ahead and combine them by using, the integer rule, where different signs, I'm going to take the difference, going to subtract. 3 subtract 2, 1 is a 2, so that's 2. And let me make my z look a little bit different. And then I need the negative sign on the 2. 14 and positive 8, those are like terms, just gives me a plus 22. Number 5. I got the x's here, decimals, that's perfectly fine. 2.5 and positive 4.3. Notice I'm getting the sign in there as well. So if I add that up, 0.5 and 0.3 is going to be a 0.8, and then a 2 and a 4 is a 6. Do not forget the x, though, please. And then the negative 5, that's all alone, but if you want to go ahead and circle it to give it a little bit of love, that's fine. But again, it stays the same. So sad. All right, last one here on this initial idea. Again, I want to practice real quick, so let me just show the work. So in order to add or subtract fractions, we need the same denominator, so they can actually both become an 8. And let me clean that up a little bit because I need the variable. So bananas, maybe? And that's supposed to be a b, not a 6. All right. So the good news is a 3 over 8 gets to stay the same. However, I need to change my second fraction. So let me grab a second color here to help. So 4 changes into an 8, again, multiplying by 2. So 3 times 2 is a 6. So when I finish my subtraction, I still have a denominator of 8. I still have the variable b, because again, those are considered like terms. You can change it to adding the opposite if you'd like to, so plus negative 6. Again, take the difference, so that's going to be a 3 with a negative sign. All right, not bad, not bad. To finish this off, we're going to go ahead and practice the distributive property and then combine like terms. Again, we focus this so much in 8th grade. It's one of those things that needs to become natural. And again, you'll get that experience now in 7th grade. And 8th grade, you'll be that much more experienced. You're going to rock it. So again, we multiply. 3 times q is 3q. And when I was teaching you this during the normal part of the school year, I did ask you to show those arrows, which again, the visualization helps you remember, especially when we get to negative signs. 3 times 1 is 3, and then a negative 4. Now that I've performed the distributive property, I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. 3q is going to stay the same because the like terms are with the positive 3 and the negative 4. So again, combining like terms, different signs, going to subtract, gives me a 1. Going to take the sign from the negative 4, has the greater absolute value. 3q subtract 1. On this one here, going to use my distributive property again. Negative 2 times g is negative 2g. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And then a plus 7g. So again, going to go ahead and combine like terms, negative 2g and positive 7g. Difference means subtract. Take the sign from the greatest absolute value, which would be a positive 7, so I'm going to be positive 5. Subtract 8. Again, if you want to circle it, say hi. We got negative 8. All right, one thing I want to mention, and I forgot to mention on 7 and 8, this is a common mistake that students do, is they do both arrows at the same time, and they kind of go, now what do I do? That's why I really try and focus on one at a time. Another common mistake that we tried sharing during the normal school year is please do not do 7 subtract 4 to get a 3, and then try and distribute a 3. That is incorrect order of operations. Which means the 7 needs to stay the same, the negative 4 is going to distribute. And again, we've seen this a few times. It's going to look like this, negative 4 over 1 multiplying by 3 over 4. So you could do your cross-canceling here, or remember the other strategy is you can multiply and then divide. I personally like the cross-canceling, but some students like multiplying and then dividing. So we should know it's going to be negative. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3x. The cross-canceling, the 4's become little ones. Still get a 3x. Negative sign, of course. Now, second arrow here. Can we all visualize negative multiplied by negative to give us a positive? Common mistake right there. Please be very careful. So, again, it confirms it right here. Negative 4 over 1 multiplied by negative 1/4. Negative multiplied by negative is a positive. So 2 ways again, cross-canceling or multiply and then divide. It should give you the same value. 4 times 1 is 4 divided by 4, or cross-cancel, and you should get nice ones there. All right, now that I have simplified it to a certain extent, I need to continue my simplification, which is, again, combining like terms. So I always start with the variables. You should too. Negative 3x all alone. Then we've got a positive 7 and a positive 1 to give us a positive 8. Beautiful. Now, really be careful of that distributive property with those negative signs. Again, continue to be awesome, doing your work, checking your answers like I showed you on the beginning of the video, and you should be good to go. All right, be awesome.